Hello, everyone. I just, as usual, I'm gonna man, I think I'm tired, but I just got back from the bike ride. I'm gonna let some people join into this. I mean, the good thing is we're recording. It's been a minute. I know that there's a lot of people that have been really interested in kind of getting an update. We've got a lot to go over tonight. And so I want to make sure that we've got everybody on here that we need to, just so that when the questions come rolling in, they don't have to rewind or wait for us to post it. But hello. A couple of usuals and a couple of new people. This is really great. We've had a big influx of people joining in the server, and we're almost at 500 members now, which is pretty awesome. I think that's pretty great. Give everybody a little bit longer. Oh, it's been quite a bit. Like, I got to tell you, the prep for FanX was far more daunting than I was planning on, and than a lot of us were planning on. If everything could have gone wrong, it did internally, and we had to scramble as a team to make it all happen. And you guys don't know what happened from behind the scenes, but that's great, because you don't want to. But yeah, we pulled it together, and it turned out to be a really good show. For those of you that were there, we definitely had a presentation. Definitely made a lot of noise. You could hear us across the entire. Everyone would come from all over the place, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I thought there was thunder. I thought that there was this." You could hear you from way over there. I was over at the photo signing, and I was at this panel, and I was just walking into the convention center. But yeah, we were definitely making a lot of noise. Hello, everyone. It looks like we're starting to get a couple more people tracking in, which is great. How many people on this call right now are actually at FanX? Give me a thumbs up or a heart or something. Let me know if that's something that you were there for. I thought that I had live. I'm going to go to live chat. And I thought I had live feedback. So was nobody there? Anybody on this call? Nobody was at FanX? I'm not seeing any hearts. I'm not seeing any thumbs up. So I'm going to assume that nobody was here. So I'll just kind of give you a little bit of a show because this was a little bit of a precursor of what we're planning on doing, especially when it comes to our live events. Some of our partners, LBEs, there's some things that are now in the works. That's really great. If you're local, again, I know that it kind of stinks, but it's a good chance that we're going to be traveling around with FanX, or at least with some other cons, and the use case and everything else that we were able to present for FanX will be something that we'll be able to go further with. So I'll just share with you what we were able to do, because I brought my dragon, Frigg, for those of you who haven't heard, and I am going to post a video just so that you know of the actual cut together live. This little segment that I've just got a little walk around booth that I just kind of want to show you guys for a second here. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna share screen. Oh, it's so funny. It doesn't detect that. I have to go to my QuickTime player. Okay, let me know if you guys can see this. That silly look on my face right there. Can you guys see that? Great. Okay, I'll just kind of let this play. If you guys want to see the booth, you can see my Dragon Frig in the background. I might just talk over it a little bit. But
coming live from the FanX booth. Right behind me is Frig.
This was
Dragon. You can see some of the Dragon Wranglers in here.
This was the
really
last day.
We're just kind of retiring right now.
This was the last day on Saturday when most everybody had gone home because none of us had a moment to even record. But we did hire. We did have somebody that was doing some videography and some work. Have the life size, full size.
This is full grown.
So you can see how big that you are to your mountain skull.
We got the booth over here. This is the backside. This is where we were doing the checkout. A little bit of behind the scenes.
FanX attendees, we want to remind you that the vendor floor will be closing in 40 minutes. Just a reminder, vendor floor will be closing in 40 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, so this was kind of swamped the entire time. We got obviously some cosplayers there, but we were just moving and shaking the entire time. It was nonstop, really. Some people came by the booth hoping to chat with us. We had Siverus was able to come by, and I was able to talk with him for a little bit, but it didn't, just with the crowds of the group and everybody else, it was moving through there pretty quick. But you can kind of see, watch what happens. I talked to Frig here in the background, and she actually responds.
Can you look at the camera? Yeah, can you breathe fire on this kid? Yeah, kill him. Kill him? That's my kid. I just told her to kill my kid. No, we like him too much. All right, thanks for checking it out. But yeah, that was day 3, FanX. We're about to close it down. It's been real.
So I just wanted to show that so that those of you that weren't able to be there get a little preview of it, get a little idea of it. And we will definitely be posting a lot more, some stuff to come. We have made some great contacts, great partnerships, a lot of things kind of in the works because of that show. And they have definitely asked us back for more. They've definitely, talked to us about even being an anchor there, some other things, because there was a lot, like I was saying, there was a lot of noise that we created, and it was pretty exciting. So the VR game is coming out. Yes, we're going to get to all of that. So we got a lot to cover tonight, and I guess we could just start diving right into it, because I know that it's been a while since we've chatted, and there's going to be a lot of questions that we have tonight. A lot of new people, like we said. What does it mean, and what does it come up, what's going on? So just kind of an overall roadmap. We are putting some final touches on some things again, because we were able to, for those of you that know kind of what happened leading up to FanX, we were in a little bit of a fundraise scenario. But when FanX happened, we had to kind of stop, put the brakes on fundraising, just because we had to get everything ready for FanX and get all of that prepared. Now that we're done with FanX, we were able to, thank you guys. I think we're nearly sold out of the remaining quantity of the elder eggs, just to kind of give everybody an idea. which is great. We've still been keeping that Mountain Skull pricing there, and I should have in my hands this week the fobs, the scales, so that those will be finished getting sent out, and we should be able to fulfill all the rest of the orders that have happened at FanX, as well as some of the orders that have taken place after that. So keep your eye out for your email. I know that Dice will probably be, and some of our moderators will be in communication with you guys if there is some delays. There are some holidays that are coming up this week that may delay that later on in the week, but between now and the next 10 days, like most of this stuff should be heading out, and I will get a confirmation on that. We'll update everybody in Discord. But what's happening with kind of the roadmap for everything? Like I said, we were in the fundraising stages. We had to put that on pause because we had to just get everything ready for FanX. Now that we're over with that, we actually have a lot of partners that have contacted us, reached out, and so we're back into this fundraising standpoint. The good news is that we are hoping to be wrapped up. We'll keep everybody posted on this. We're hoping to be wrapped up on this final stage of fundraising here this year. It's delaying a couple of things because there's such a big energy and effort being put out on that. And we actually have just but we've been able to make a partnership with Google Cloud Services and some of their AI services and some other things. And so we were working with AWS previously, and now we're tracking with Google Cloud Services. And so we're looking to see what it looks like from the AI transfer. And that's really where the bulk of what's happening for the release of the app. So when we look at what I mean by the AI transfer is more or less where the AI is going to live, what sources of AI, and how we're gathering data, because what we're putting together right now is how much data we need to properly train the models on an individual basis. And we're taking our time with this one because a lot of concerns were asked at FanX, and I know that a lot of you guys have had the concerns on whether or not how much is it going to cost, like on a monthly basis. And when we talked about the stabling fee, that was usually including like food and treats and apparel and some of the other things that we were going to be including in there. But that also is to cover a lot of our data collection and storage, as well as our AI training on an ongoing basis. How much of that data needs to be kept over time, how much of that can be dumped. And this is where it gets a little bit complex, because so much of the way that we wanted to incorporate that, we just have to make sure that we're compliant in so many different ways. And we want to also make sure that we are collecting enough data that the way that we put the roadmap for you guys to train and your Dragons Evolve is definitely the right amount to be able to get a value data set, because that's a really important piece. But we're also trying to balance that with overall costs and just storage and all the other stuff that come with it. So be a little bit patient with us, because we are working through that. And then with that, we will have the perpetual clock that's turned on, so that then when you guys have your individual dragons, I know that there's been some concerns that, hey, I'm using a different dragon code and it seems to be setting up with the same like temperatures and those types of things. But that's all going to be moved over onto the perpetual side of things, which means that the main brain will be controlling that, not what's happening currently, where it's being calculated locally on your phone. So that's going to be in a main database and server. That's going to be determining, and you'll be getting the push notifications as we update that. That's going to be way more dynamic based on your dragon's path, and also with what's kind of happening. So if you were living on the East Coast the last week, you know, these are interesting things, right? Because with the amount of rainfall and some of the other things that have happened, especially in the atmosphere, that would definitely have a change on what would be happening with your dragon with that perpetual system. So we're still hoping, we're still targeting the end of this year, but there's a little bit that we just have to validate with the AI that could hold that up. We'll keep you guys posted as we come closer to that. But again, the good thing is that we can continue to test. We want to make sure that we get the app cleaned up in all the ways possible that we need to. And then also, so when we do turn it on, that you guys have a really good idea of what you need to do to get the type of dragon that you want, meaning the class of dragon, male and female, and some of the other things that are going to be happening in the hatch portion of this. So let's see. There's a couple of questions, and I can go ahead and cross these out. Is there news when the VR game will be coming out? So let me just answer that question. So again, there was a couple of things that happened with the demo, right? And if you haven't been able to access that, it is on SideQuest and available for the Quest 3, so that you can still download that. You can do that. You don't have to ask for a backend code. We've done some updates to it from even the world, some of the mechanics, and been optimizing it. The biggest issue that's happening right now is we started with photoreal, and you guys know which we're trying to accomplish on the fidelity side. We might have to ask for a little bit of grace on what happens on the graphics side, because let me just state it plainly. Mobile VR, it's unbelievably complicated in order to get the performance, because the requirements are 90 frames per second. So if you've been using the new VR stuff in the Quest and you don't get sick, that you used to get sick, the reason why is because they've gotten better with the frame rates and with the processing and everything else. But most of the graphics that you see inside the Quest 3, they're pretty cartoony. They're very rudimentary, right? We're going back to the Nintendo Wii, or sometimes even the 64. But we're still pushing that envelope for what we want to accomplish. But it is causing some complications to be able to get published on Oculus directly. And so with that in mind, we've started to do a multiplayer build. And we're also building on top of that. So that those things are very much incorporated with the new release that we will have. When we do get that, you guys will be able to interact or have multiple people in the same space, either like co-location or like a local server basis. So again, it is on SideQuest. You can download that. You don't need any like VIP access or anything. And we are working through the issues of being able to publish that on Oculus. But we've gotten the Heisman in a lot of different pieces. So I don't want to say it's back to the drawing board, but the way that we were designing everything was to be at a much higher fidelity, and it's causing a lot of headaches. So just to kind of give you guys that idea. Oh, thank you for the compliment on the setup. Yeah, the good thing is like as we start to do this rollout, you guys are going to get a lot of opportunity to come to these live events and to some of these partner events. And hopefully we'll have some stuff where you can load up your dragon, or at least a future version of your dragon if you so be it. So let's see. Are the eggs still on back order to be mailed out? So currently the eggs are not on back order right now, just so that you guys know. However, because we want to make sure that logistically it's not a nightmare, we're waiting for the fobs and the scales. Now, some of you that have ordered just eggs and mystery eggs, those are going to be sent out. If you've ordered just the elder egg, those are going to be processed this week. If you have got a scale or some of the bundle things, we're just waiting for those to come in. So they should be here this week. We will keep you posted on that, just so that you kind of understand that. But yeah, like we're again, on the egg standpoint, we are looking at that for the next 10 days. I would say. I will let you guys know if something on that changes. But we've already started. Even last week, we did kind of some pre stuff that got on the back burner just because we were delayed with FanX, because it was an all hands on deck thing. But we have already started sending out those packages. So just to kind of who won the egg giveaway? So I believe that was announced in Discord. I don't have that information right on me. But we can definitely announce it or share it if that person so wants to. But yeah, we announced that actually on Monday or Tuesday, I think, of last week. So congratulations to that person that won. Let's see, with the VR fidelity in mind, any chance on a PCR version with better fidelity? 100%. So when we look at, and I've seen conversations where people are contemplating Quest versus like PlayStation VR and some of the other stuff. Now, the good thing is a lot of our development pipeline, because we are a multi-platform or omni-platform, it allows us to be available for these things. We are developing an OpenXR, which also allows us to include Vives and everything else. But the pipeline for the Dragon, for our assets, that's the tricky part, because it's not just an LOD, it's a performance issue. And if we do live ray tracing, because some of the things that Unreal allows us to do are unbelievable. And we're also working through a little bit of a procedural opportunity, especially as we start to look toward what's going to happen with breeding, that we want to make sure that the models are copacetic and compatible, and also that our animations can be retargeted. So there's a little bit of stuff that we have to kind of clean up on that before we can optimize for that. But I would imagine that we should have, I'm hoping to have a version of this available for some connected PC VRs, even though like we're getting a lot of announcements. Like I'm sure some of you probably saw the Orion announcement. We still don't know what a price is going to be on those, or even when they're going to be available for the public. But I'm hoping that we should be available on starting to roll out multiple platforms sometime next year. But again, we'll keep you posted on that. We have some targets that we hope to share once we get everything finalized with not only our financial partners, but with also some partners moving forward in our product development side of things, because as always, have some surprises in store. We always do this, right? You'll always see me talk about this because we get excited about it and we find out new ways to be able to do this. We learned a ton from FanX. We learned a ton by having so many conversations with so many of you. It was really good, but hopefully that can. We got Sakura is announcing that the winner was Amanda. It was Amanda on Discord under the general updates. So, how are your developers dealing with emotions on dragons, facial expressions, etc.? So, you want to get really technical, don't you? The way that we're actually doing facial expressions, and this is what's also really important with the different phases of the dragons, is we're using a device called Blend Shapes. Now, currently if you have a Quest, or you haven't seen a walkthrough, or you want to see a walkthrough, there's a couple of different versions of it that you can see. The dragon through blinking, through even like a smiling or sniffing, there's different things that move on the face of the dragon, and everything that we're trying to do. And it's funny because there's a lot of people that say, I have no instructions. The player feedback is really poor. There's not a lot of tutorials. And for those of you that know what's going on here, it's because we are trying to give you a more realistic pet, a realistic companion. And remember that, because a dog doesn't come with instructions. A child doesn't come with instructions. You start to learn the crying based on like what they want, whether it's an animal or it's a human, based on the type of cry, right? Or the smile, or the way that they, start to learn to control their face. And so we do have all of those things built into the dragons to be very expressive, using animations, using sound, using music cues. and those things, I do suggest that when you go through and you play the first night demo, when you experience that, you kind of pay attention to those things, because they give you good indications of things that you are successful at or things that you're not doing. But I will give you a hint on this. If the dragon's running away from you and screaming at you nonstop, you haven't been able to move past the first stage. Just to give you an idea, a lot of people get confused by that. But again, like, try it out on the beginner, or kind of in a novice setting before you go into the advanced setting, just so you can start to recognize those nuances, and then go in there and try your hand at that. But yeah, so it's a mix of blend shapes. Currently, the dragon, if you look at like our control rig and the way that we've actually got it moving, there's over 800 checks that are happening per second on the dragon, on the speed of its tail, how much it wags, whether it's going up and down or side to side, the blinking of its eyes, like the breathing, the speed and the breath, the nose, whether or not it's sniffing. There's a lot of things that are happening that are just kind of giving that sort of that breath of life, if you will. Let's see. State of the setup. FanX was awesome. Thank you. Most of the events will be based out of Utah. So because we are in Utah, it makes it very easy for us to do events here. It looks like the partnership with FanX wants to go a little bit further. Currently, they are at 4 different locations. I don't have all of them off the top of my head. One of them's Tampa. They had one in Minnesota, but that one just got canceled. I think they have one in Colorado. They have one in, I don't know all their locations off the top of my head. We are hoping to be at GameCon next year. So for those of our friends that are across the pond, we hope to see you there. There are some other things that we plan on doing, and we are working through some things with some LBEs that are here, but they are also national and international. So we will keep a schedule of events for you guys to be aware of. And we definitely hope to have you come out and see us in any of those, just to kind of, let's see. Books for how to care for pets and kids. I bought one years ago when I was a teen, got my first guinea pig. Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. There is the Dragon Care Guide, which has been worked on and is being worked on by some of the mods, some of the other people that are working with us. And we are developing more of a roadmap of where and when to be able to get clues on how to raise your dragon. But that's kind of part of the bigger play and the strategy, how we say, oh, come to the live events, you'll be able to experience some stuff, you'll learn some stuff that you might be able to utilize in what you do to grow the dragon the way that you hope to, and extend that companionship, as well as what happens in the mobile app, what happens on the VR side, and what happens in some of the multimedia aspects, like books or blogs or websites or other types of things. So yeah, just to kind of give you an idea. And of course, they cancel one, I would attend. So you're over in Missouri, Minneapolis? I can't even remember what I just said. But yeah, let me just kind of give a couple of things. Let me move down the list here, because there's a lot of things to cover, and I will try and answer the questions as you guys have them. Let me know if I've been answering them so far. So Dragon Death. This is still going to be a conversation, I think, till the end of days. If there's any concerns right now that your dragon's going to die, don't worry about it. Your dragon is not going to die. If your egg has a default or something happens with that physically, your dragon's not going to die. If you're away and the app says that your dragon died, your dragon's not dead. These things are in place so that we can understand how quickly the system defaults to those, how fast it moves to that, because a lot of the things that we've been talking about are vacation mode, one, and even a stasis mode. Now, the one thing that we want to encourage, and we need to discuss this a little bit more, because what we don't want to do is have somebody go and just start putting their dragon into stasis like nonstop, meaning like, oh man, I don't have the time and I forgot, I put it in stasis and I just left it there for 2 months. You know what I mean? As that server kind of controls those things, it will ping you to let you know that your dragon, either those time frames are coming due, you need to pull it out. Maybe there needs to be like so many days on, so many days off, that type of thing. But again, just so that you guys remember this, we designed this to be as advanced or as simplistic as you want to do it. It's not going to harm your dragon. What it's going to do is start to put in default systems. So if you're hoping for a male and you got a female, or vice versa, that may happen, right? But it's not going to adversely affect your dragon, meaning you're not going to get something that all of a sudden is an unruly teenager. The good thing about the mountain skull is it's a very forgiving dragon. The elder is a little bit more complicated for those of you that have gotten the elder, but we are working on to make sure that you do have the availability for stasis and for vacation mode. You know, we are having some different pieces of that. So again, most of the death, if we can like conclude this, is going to be if you willfully put your dragon into harm's way in one of the more advanced experiences in VR, or possibly what we're looking at for the roadmap on the mobile phone. And that means that you're going out and seeking dangerous events. As that starts to evolve, we hope to get your input for it. But you will always be warned if you are going into a situation where your dragon is going to be in danger, so that you will be able to make that decision long before you actually get confronted with a bad choice, if that would make sense. So here's a question about information about the elders. So if the classes would be showcased at all, if there would be a way to multi-class or switch between them. So for those of you that were able to see this, and forgive me, this is a prototype, so it's really dark, but the placards, right, of the elders and the mountain skull, these guys actually had their classes printed on them. Yeah, you can see that right there. This was a really bad print. It was a defect. That's why it's sitting here. But yes, the classes have been known for the mountain skull, or for the elder. The one thing that I want you guys to recognize with the with kind of the lore, and this is lore and story, so we can talk about this with the elder, is that we haven't, as expedition teams and Dragon Federation, we actually have never seen an elder in the wild. So the eggs, if it hasn't been published yet, have been unearthed because of an event. That's why we were able to discover the clutch, but we actually have not witnessed an elder in the wild. And that's why when you see a lot of the writings, it's from gathered of old lore and text and how that's combined with what we've come to understand of that dragon. So when you really look at the elder dragon, it is quite a mystery, and there's a reason for that. It's not a very well-known dragon as far as something that you come across all the time. Their personality is such that they don't want to be bothered and they don't want to be seen. So it doesn't mean that they still can't bond, and it doesn't mean that you still can't have a great bonded relationship with an elder. They're just that way. They're the introvert, if you will. Just to kind of give you an idea of that. And see if the class we showcase at all, or we would have multi-class switch between them. So as of right now, there isn't a way to switch between classes. Now, I say that with a caveat, because if let's say in the in the hatch phase of any of the dragons, you're prone to any one of the classes because of the way that you've set the temperatures, the way that you've set the heart rate, and also managed the sleep schedule. That's going to predispose it for a certain class. Now, as the dragon gets older and the types of things that you train it with, meaning diet, exercise, other types of things, whether that's heat training, water training, those types of things, it will start to move toward those classes. Now, I don't want to say with any certainty, because this thing is so dynamic, that if you go one way, that it will prevent you from ever going another way. However, just like, this is my best analogy, so forgive me for it. If you train an Olympic sprinter, let's say, it's going to be pretty hard if that person or that thing has competed in multiple Olympics as a sprinter to all of a sudden switch to the swimming discipline or water polo, let's say. It's not that it's not possible, but the amount of time that you kind of have to rewind that, undo it, and then move it into another direction, the juice may not be worth the squeeze. And that's why there's a lot of planning and prep that we hope to be able to help you publish with, or help publish, as well as get the information when you start to begin your journey of raising your dragon, that you will be able to understand what you want to do and why you want to do it. Hopefully that helps. So let's see. Will there be an elder fetus at a later date? For sure. Just to be straight up, for sure, there's going to be an elder fetus. So right now, if you are seeing the mountain skull dragon, that's okay. The fetus will be coming in there before you ever start raising your elder. Just to clear that up. Let's see. Okay. So moving on. So just bringing this up again, because I know that this has been asked, have we settled on a stabling fee? No, we haven't. We are waiting to find out what, and again, what this goes back to, there's 3 things that we're going to be looking on there. Data collection and storage, and then AI training. All of that stuff currently is being done through the cloud, which means that bandwidth up and bandwidth down every single time we train. So there's one thing of collecting it and then storing the data, and there's the other of how often it updates to your dragon. And what we're trying to work through right now with our partners at both AWS and Google is to figure out that magic recipe that will minimize cost to you guys, but still allow it to be as dynamic as possible so that it feels very organic and it feels very natural. That's the thing that we're trying to manage, because we did have many people, both at FanX and otherwise. Many of you have multiple different dragons, right? And so we want to make sure that that cost can be managed to the way that you would want this to be. The third part of that is actually the multiplayer, so the servers. And we know that this is a big part of this. The communities that you guys are already developing, the ability to start working with one another and to go into these worlds and start interacting with one another, that's another cost. And so depending on what that looks like, we might be able to separate those two, but currently we're evaluating that to be under the same banner with the stabling fees. I don't foresee it being any more than we've already talked about in the past. And just for where you guys kind of stand, I don't know if we published this, Dice, but I believe it was $10 at the entry level, with a medium level at 15 and an upper tier package at 20. And those also, like I said, they add more treats, toys, different types of things. If you look at even foods and resources based on those types of packages. But again, this is far enough ahead that we're still working through that problem. So we're hoping to get those costs lower. than that. But the good news is that for, I think, most of you at this point, because you're kind of in that, I don't want to say pre-launch scenario, we've definitely been able to work it in that you're at least going to be getting a year of stabling at no charge. So we'll talk about that some more, but with some of these different events, we've had some of those different tranches anyway. So you're asking if you got 2 eggs, will they come at the same time? So unfortunately, we don't bulk package because the shipping goes up exponentially. So right now they will be sent at the same time, and they more or less should arrive at the same time because it will be the same version of shipping, but they're not going to be shipped in the same box, just so that you know. Let's see. What to expect in terms of incubation temperatures and what damage can be done by leaving it too cold too long. So, excuse me. The incubation temperatures are there to be able to set a default or be able to move into the different types of classes and the sex of the dragon. So as we move along through this, there will be hints and clues. We still don't want to give it straight away that it's like, oh, if you up, down, left, right, select start, you're going to be able to get a girl and it's going to be a fire breather. Because of the type of dragon that you have, there's a little bit of nuance that's built into it. And I say not the type of dragon, but also the personality, right? Sometimes if you have a more aggressive personality, it may also kind of push the dragon into a more offensive class than a defensive one. And the only way that I can describe that is a fire breather is more offensive, where a tank or like the armored side or even a high altitude flower might be more defensive. But the advantages to the armored version in a resource gathering, anyway, like that's really what those temperatures are for, and for the heart rate, and why those are important, especially at the incubation phase. But we will definitely have more on that, but we haven't decided if we're going to be just on the nose, but we'll figure that out. Let's see. Greg, give Christmas pygmy eggs for a subscription of stabling. Oh, interesting. Those are interesting thoughts. The one thing that we, like so many people talked about at FanX, was the fact that the pygmies didn't come with an egg. And we know that what we're doing here, and this is why we started with the eggs, the physical egg, was if you followed us all the way back to the Kickstarter, that was the original what we were doing. It was the physical items. And we've got some really cool stuff in store too for the different progressions, like different phases of your dragon and what those physical items are. And we hope to announce those here soon with the roadmap as well. Genders determined by temperature. Yep. Incubating multiple at different temps. Yep. All of those things. We did talk about the timelines for receiving the scales. We are hoping to have those again. I'll just reiterate that. That's hopefully to have those in the next 10 days. We're probably going to start sending out some of those this week. Yes, if you do have multiple eggs, we are going to probably enable a feature where you can put something in stasis that does not have an effect, whereas that if you have a solo egg and you're just not taking care of your dragon, and you keep putting it in stasis, we're still working through that. But yeah, if you have multiple eggs, we're definitely going to try and make that more accommodating for you, because having twins, triplets, sextuplets, all those types of things, that can be overwhelming. So this is an interesting one. Why do we call it an experience versus a game? So first and foremost, if you've been able to, and a lot of you haven't been able to be there in FanX in person, but the reason why we call it an experience is because it's everywhere you are, if that makes sense. It's a companion. First and foremost, we are creating companions. We are using game technology to make that happen. But I want to be really clear. The gamification that's happening here is how you get to discover the sex of the dragon, how you get to manipulate the classes of the dragon. But very much the core of what we're doing is a feedback loop akin to a pet or a companion. It's going to have an intelligence about it that is going to be far beyond what a game is. And it doesn't do it justice. It's interesting because we've gone down the road and we've fought, and this is just internal. I'm just giving you guys some details because I think that details matter. But we've fought with so many people from a development side of things that want to do like loot boxes and these daily rewards to kind of create that negative feedback loop that you're kind of all familiar with. It's like, oh, I got to go in there to do this this thing that doesn't matter in order to get this reward because I'm not going to pay for this thing. And that's what game loops do, right? Whereas what we are doing is a far more nurture-based system where the feedback from the dragon will actually be, I think, just as rewarding, if anything else out there. Now, we still have the Easter eggs, and like I said, we still have game mechanics that we are deploying, but it's whether you do it on your phone, whether you do it in the VR headset, whether you do it at a live event, those types of things, it will feel like it's all part of the same universe. It will be part of the same universe, but it will also be these sort of standalone things, these moments, these experiences and memories. That's why we call it an experience versus a game, because we're not even listed on the store as a game. We are listed as an experience. So just to kind of give you an update on that. One of the next questions is are we going to end up with something that has a story or is more toward ARC survival-esque sandbox? I saw some conversations in the Discord. So for those of you that don't know me, I am a storyteller at heart. I come from the film and television background. This is where the genesis of Dragon Federation started. We do have a rich backstory, which if you read some of the blogs that was posted this year about, I can't remember the name of the girl, but one of the early dragon riders from the Federation of Dragons, you'll start to learn a little bit about the entire backstory of this. And the lore, which we haven't really gotten into today because it's like the first time that we're back, is pretty deep. Whether we're talking about binding, whether we're talking about what the role the mountain skull plays as compared to other breeds of dragon. There's a lot going on there, and the different types of riders and what does that mean. But all of that being said, if you look at the open sandbox-esque games like ARC, we plan on having that type of deep community engagement where you have the ability to go into the world, discover and explore with other people in a multiplayer setting. You don't have to engage in that because I know a lot of people who review are worried about that. That is an option. But these things, again, like we have to be really careful about, because if that happens in VR, we want to make sure that that's not a VR only scenario, right? So meaning, what can you do on your phone to still have the full rich experience, as well as then go into VR or XR and then amplify that experience, and then again be able to be at a live event to once again amplify that experience. So if you don't have the VR headset, to be able to take this all the way through on your phone, and then as you start to progress and get a lot more deeper into the opportunities of it, to be able to explore those other aspects. So MMOs in VR and Quest are really hard. I'm just letting you all know that. This is something that we want to do. And it's funny because I've had these even conversations with Oculus as a developer. and even from a publishing standpoint. And I said, well, maybe we could just make it so that we say, if you're going to go do this mode, that you have to tether, because the mobile side of it can't handle multiplayer processing, graphics fidelity, as well as some of the other more complicated pieces of this. And so we are definitely talking about these opportunities to say, hey, make sure that you can plug in if you want to do this particular thing, or be able to run on a much more powerful headset. The good thing is for those of you that have been following us for a while, when we first started doing this, even what we were able to accomplish in VR, tethered VR, we weren't able to accomplish in the pass-through. And arguably what's happening in the pass-through is very, very exciting for a lot of people. But the technology just continues to go very, very quickly and evolve exponentially. So I do believe that we are going to hit parity with that, especially with pricing. That's going to make it a lot more affordable. And this is just me kind of saying this, and this is one of the reasons why I got into this in the first place, is because I do think that wearable technology is going to replace our phones probably in the next decade sometime. And once that happens anyway, we're going to be so used to having things in our field of view that it's going to be very seamless. And once that also happens, the graphic ability, because if you look at, your phone, the processors in these guys are more powerful than most of your guys' laptops. Well, I don't want to say most of your guys', but they're unbelievably powerful in the mobile phone, and that is going to happen with the headset technology. It's still very much in its infancy, but I'm just saying that right now because a lot of the things that we talk about that some of you might be very excited about are on the roadmap, but they're a little ways out. So we are working through those problems and testing them as fast as possible so that we can understand what we're up against in our development pipeline, but they may not be released for a while. I will say, for those of you that are familiar with Star Citizen, we might be rolling out some things the way that they've done it, because they're kind of on a similar path with us, where they were trying to launch, and then when they were launching, they were finding out that it wasn't compatible or copacetic with the settings and the levels that they were doing, and so they're still in an internal playtesting mode. Even though they're rolling out new equipment and ships and those types of things. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. But it's kind of in a good roadmap. You guys are definitely going to be rewarded and have access to things that no other person's going to have. And that's I think that it's part of the cool factor of what we're doing right now, because you really do have a voice. And we rely on you guys heavily. So please stay active in that, and please contribute with what that looks like, because the features, especially in the way that we roll those things out, are going to be uniquely tied to the feedback that we get from you guys. Let's see. What are these other roles in the Dragon Roll server about? Weaponsmith, magician, etc. So if you guys are looking at that and you're looking at the roles, think of it more as like a second life. Just as your dragons have classes, the riders will be able to have classes as well. So if you look at a breeder, a farmer, a medic, those types of things, those will be skill sets that you will be able to start to learn and, I guess, become more skilled, or a crafts person, or those types of things. So when you look at those roles, those are contemplated. Those are currently being worked on. Probably in the earlier versions of this, it's going to be scaled back, but similar as we get more and more, everything's modular the way that we're developing. So it allows us to build everything out so that we can work on a small sample, test it, make sure that it's working functionally, and then build it out from there. So that's what those things are. If you see that in the Discord server, just know that those things are coming. What if any? Currency. There is going to be a marketplace. And currency is an interesting thing because we definitely don't want this to be a pay to play or pay to win scenario. And again, winning is so not the right term here because it's your companion, and I don't know how to win the companion race. Some of you may look up, oh, like that dragon's super powered up because their dragon breath is whatever, their fire breath, but that's generally because of the way that they've been able to train. There might be some advantages to the speed in which you're able to train, because we have talked about incubation accelerators as well, so that your dragon can grow faster. But again, like, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but those are some of the things that when we look at in-game currencies or even trading resources for value, we do plan on having very much a player's economy, because breeding is very much a part of this. We know a lot of you want to breed. We know a lot of you are interested in building some, whether it's tools, training services, different types of goods and services that you want to sell. So we do need to, originally we were looking at a crypto, right? But we don't want to necessarily go that far because that's what the dragons were going to be tied to in a token. But again, these things are still being discussed. And I think that this is a really good time in the development of this for you guys to have a voice, because we are trying to avoid the traps and the pitfalls that other people have done in the past. And if we do implement those things, we want them to be done right and well. We have agonized and we have debated internally and otherwise about these types of things, because again, we don't want to turn it into something that's all of a sudden going to make somebody not interested in being a part of it. And if it's a way that they can integrate, take a part of it if they want to, and not take a part of it if they don't want to, but still have all the things that they want to do and the feels, then that's great. That's really what we're going for. I like that. Winning is definitely keeping the dragons alive. Correct. Survive the entirety of the map. I love that. Let's see. It looks like gaming PC. Yeah. Powerful phone. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? Bartering system. So we are definitely, when we set up the marketplace, there will be available for you guys to trade. And we're not going to set the prices on those. You know, it's like, hey, I've got 2 pieces of granite that weigh X amount of pounds. I need some oak or whatever. And someone's like, hey, I got some oak, I'll take some granite. And be able to, you guys can set the prices, or you guys can set the trade levels. That's where this gets really complicated, right? Because we still have to track the inventory for everybody. And when those are initiated, we just have to have a way to be able to understand where those assets are being placed and how they're being allocated. So if they're in your cache or your settings or those types of things, we just have to make sure that we don't get that stuff lost. And that's where, when you've got stuff moving around, for those of you that have ever done development, that's where things break. And that's where also you figure out how to cheat codes all the time, because it's like, hey, if we trade these 2 things all the time, then it just resets it and we get the double amounts of stuff. But that's part of the process that we're going to be going through. And obviously we're not, for those of you that have been around, we try and make it all right by you guys anyway. So, but just to kind of give you some ideas, for those of you that are new to this, and what's going on, what our pipeline looks like, our development style. We will be publishing some stuff, but I said my biggest priority right now for the team, the executive team, is to finalize the fundraise that we're working on right now. And once we have that, we will make those announcements. We will start to have the rest of this published in a place, because we plan on having that on our website, so that you can start to see, be in a very open place, as well as the Discord server. But talked about exploring the world in a multiplayer setting. Is there going to be an option to do it solo in a more PvE environment instead of PvP? 100%. Just so that you know, multiplayer is going to be an option, not a mandatory. Now, the one thing that I will say about that we are developing this specifically so that community and co-op is going to enable you to do things that otherwise would be nearly impossible to do on your own. So let me explain that just a little bit. If you have a friend that you're a fire breather, they're a tank, and somebody else is a high altitude flyer, you might be able to combine those forces to be able to get to something that you weren't able to get to solo. Now, if you don't want to use the friends, but you've raised dragons to be able to have those combinations, you will be able to use those dragons in the same way that you would be able to use a multiplayer option or a peer-to-peer option. Again, we're not trying to make it so that you don't have to do that, but we also know that a lot of people don't want to be subject to some random idiot that's just going to come and try and harass everybody. And I'm not saying anybody's going to do that here, but somebody will do it eventually, right? And so that's something that you can elect to do. You don't have, it's not required. Is the VR game coming out in 2026 then? If it takes that long to come out, then shoot me in the head. We're far enough down the road of what we've been able to do. Our next steps right now is we are going to be validating the base function of all the animations of the dragon. What that means is, and I'm not going to tell you what we're doing to kind of validate that, but we have a very cool surprise, hopefully, about how we are going to be developing and testing that function of the dragon. Once that part of the dragon is done, the development for the map or products and features, whether it's resource gathering, whether it's training, whether it's those other types of things that we're talking about, should be regular and often. Because then it's just like you'd be surprised at how quickly you can get to like a gray box development scenario, especially if you already have the core of the dragon working. Then it's just about lining up those with the mechanics of that specific thing, right? And once that happens, we will get you guys definitely into a playtesting environment to be able to test that and try and break it as rapidly and fast as possible. And then we can start to go into a polish. So the timeline for this is like, I am always an optimist, but the good news is that we're going to have like a much bigger team to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish in what has taken us a longer amount of time, especially in these early stages, based on the complexity of what we're trying to accomplish with the AI, with the multiplayer, the data collection, and all of those types of things. But those are nearly, I don't want to say figured out, because there's always something that can break, but we're really close on that, which means that the other pieces of this that we have mapped out should start to come pretty fast and furious. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that we were published already, because now we just push updates, and that's a very different it's a very different process from pushing updates than it is from getting approved. So yeah, 2 months to go before 2025. Yep. That's right. Well, that hour flew by. If there's any other questions that you guys have, feel free to reach out. Definitely, I love seeing the growth and the conversations that are happening in Discord. Again, I want to send a shout out to all of our moderators because they're doing a fantastic job. Please be patient with them because they're only dealing. I mean, I know that a ton of tickets were opened, especially after the show. We've got a lot going on. It's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. But thank you for being a part of this. We couldn't do any of it without you. Again, like I love having these. It's good to be back on the Lauren story and to having these conversations. So I appreciate you guys all showing up again tonight and being a part of this. And I look forward to doing it again in a couple of weeks. But on that note, again, I will say thank you and have a good night.